What up and happy Tuesday, everybody. RazzBallers, we are back. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. That's S-K-Y-G as in gazillions, U-A-S-C-O. Matty Styles, it Styles 08. Jefferson 2_, Deuce 1, Cruiser 128, and Derek Favret, Derek _ Favret, that is, to the people. You can find everything Razzball at RazzballNFL on the Xbox, and of course you can find us on the podcast machine and right here on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. If you're telling a friend's friend, make sure they subscribe, hit the bell, don't miss any of the action. Now we're in full swing with 2 weeks in a row of Quint Box. Gentlemen, I think this is catching on. I believe it was trending on X when I just checked about 3 minutes ago, so very hyped to start that. We have some massive announcements tonight. I'm going to kick it off to Styles here in 1 second. We also have a fun show of recapping the first rounds of all of our respective RazzBowl drafts. I know a lot of you tuning in this evening and after the fact are in the RazzBowl with us. Davey Cruz, I'd like to give a general kind of welcome back to everybody, and your email out to everyone was very informative, but those folks who maybe didn't get it or are just not in the league might want to have some more information about that now that we're underway, so I'll give you that space here in a second as well. Once again, we do have RazzBall kicked off last night, Monday. Today is Tuesday. I'm in the second round. Some of us are in the fourth round. There's 240-plus teams. We are rocking and rolling, all good things. But without any further ado, I have buried the lead long enough. Matty Styles, take it away, my man. What you got for us? You're on mute, brother.
Muted. Let's start that again. So I'm no longer muted. That's the secondary news. The big news is yesterday and again today, I held a text conversation with a young man named Robert Lamarco. He happened to tune into the show last week. He wanted to say hello to everybody. He misses us. I told him the same thing. So maybe Bob will log into one of these. We'll get some comments. No doubt we'll see him on the Sunday Start Sit show when we do kick those off. It was nice to hear from Bob. It was nice to kind of touch base with him. I told him that we need his organizational skills because we're kind of all over the place right now. He actually did not seem to be super into football right now. He's got the new marriage and he's got the new the job that's keeping him busy. So there was very little football chatter. I tried to dig a little bit out of him, but we'll pour a little bit out for Bob's football fandom. The actual tweet that I sent him was the Titans officially releasing Bob's favorite player of all time, Treylon Burks, who at one point, if you remember back, Bob dealt A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks in fantasy football. I feel like
the Titans did too.
Yeah, they did.
Yikes.
The other thing is once we wrap around the horn, I am going to do a first time live. This group is going to make my fourth round selection in Razzball 7.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I love that. You guys might be making my second round. I'm on the clock potentially. If we get this done in the next 3 hours, I'll be on the clock as well.
I am officially on the clock. The turn went at 3:12 and 4:1. So once we get around the horn and we finish with Jeff, Derek, and Dave, then we'll go back and I'll recap the first round. I'll give you a little insight into my team, my thought process, and then we'll put this to an old-fashioned democratic vote.
I love it, man. Nice. It's exciting. Very excited to check in on all these leagues. Matt, just real quick, I'm curious. I know this would have popped Bob's interest. Did you happen to let him know the exorbitant amount of kicker conversation we had last week? Request for kicker rankings and Jamie joining an all-kicker league and everything. Did you let him know that came up last week?
No, I felt that was in bad taste. I didn't want him to put his 2 weeks in at the job and try to come back. Sure. So I kept kicker conversation. If he would have made me mad, right, if he would have made a disparaging comment about pairs, or if he would have tried to hype up Justin Fields, I would have immediately hit him with the "you're missing out on the kicker" conversation.
Understandable. Yeah, sorry, babe. I gotta swap careers back to the boys, and they need a 6 box, so I'm gonna swap it up. I love it so much. Awesome. Right on. Well, super pumped on that, Bob. We love you. and you're welcome back anytime. Obviously, for anybody unfamiliar, Robert Lamarco, a.k.a. Bobby Two Farms, a.k.a. Mark Lamarca, was running the show here for a couple of years and helped formulate the full squad you'll see on the screen now. And he's the OG head coach forever. So, Bob, we love you, buddy. You're welcome back anytime. Jeff, I'm going to kick it off to you really quick. Let's save some of the analysis you have carried really quick. And just let us know without dropping names, something that you've kind of noticed or you're having fun with in the RazzBowl draft. So not quite your recap just yet. We'll go around the horn, but just something maybe that's different than drafts, right? This is best ball. It's a 4-hour draft, long term. Where are you guys sitting right now? What's something different about RazzBowl specifically that you're digging on right now?
Yeah, what I like the most right now is that rankings don't really hold true in best ball. So conventional wisdom would tell you to take certain players in the first or second round, but guys that are in the third are creeping up to the second, or guys you think would go in the second are going on the third round. So it's keeping me at least on my toes, not really knowing where it's going to turn.
Love it. Davey Cruz, same question, my man.
Well, I figure most of the time I probably am going a little bit more running back heavy, but in a league with 3 wide receiver spots starting, I hit a running back early. I had the second pick. Once Chase went off the board, it was either Jefferson or a top back, and I went with a back. But my next 2 picks were wide receivers. And we're going to be coming up on my 4th pick at the end of this coming round. We just hit the 3-4 turn. So
nice. You guys are cooking, man. We're way behind. I think Derek is too. Derek, how you feeling? Same question to you.
Yeah. I'm behind as well, but yeah, for me, RazzBall is kind of a transition, to your home league drafts, your redraft leagues. Scott Fishbowl and some of those other ones tend to be either tight end premium or super flex, and so obviously that changes the draft strategy. But when you get to RazzBall, it's more in line with what your normal home leagues are, and some of the other traditional type leagues. So, like for instance, in my case, I mean, we just finished the second round like an hour ago, and 8 of the 12 teams left the second round with a wide receiver and a running back. So balance. 8 of the 12 with 1 running back and 1 wide receiver. So, obviously you wouldn't see that in those Scott Fishbowl type drafts, or again, tight end premium, super flex drafts, where you would see a lot of different strategies going on. This is more your traditional strategy. So it kind of serves as a transition, like I said, to me. So some of the other drafts that we're going to have, into August and right before the season starts.
Nice. For us, we're middle second too. So I think I'm the snail behind the trail here with all of us. I just counted up. We had 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers in the first round. So balance there too. But I think it's interesting to see the jumble kind of coming around. I'd like to go back around the horn now. And Styles, will start with you. Why don't you give us, you guys we're all in different spots, right? So I only have 1 player to report. Mine's kind of lame as of now. Matt's got 4 coming up second. Dave's about there as well. So Styles, give us who you've got already, your 3 guys, where you're drafting from the slot. And then before we pick your 4th pick, which would be fun, and I'd love to get the people in. If we could delay a little longer, maybe we can get a couple votes to give us some names, have the people vote in the chat. I think that'd be cool. And then maybe either at the end of the show or in a little bit, we can actually make that pick for you. But I'd like everybody to kind of recap the first round, just throw 12 names at us across the board, and maybe your biggest surprise either way. Someone that, like Jeff said earlier, maybe someone that jumped up a round or 2 in the first round, or a player like, how does X player not get drafted in the first round? That was surprising to me. So Styles, will kick it off with you. Give us your 3 players, where you're drafting from, and your first round. After that, you can give us who's available for your 4th. We'll throw it over to the chat, and then we'll move on. Go for it.
All right. Mine apparently is going to be similar to yours. The first 12 were wide receiver and running back. And in this order, Chase, Jefferson, Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, A-Chain, Puka, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ashton Genty, Brian Thomas, and Derrick Henry. So out of the 111, I was the Brian Thomas drafter. I actually went back and forth with we got a Jags fan on the line. We went back and forth. I talked to the guys about this. We texted, and I had a really good shot at Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors coming back. I wanted a little bit of more Brian Thomas than I did Neighbors with a healthy Trevor Lawrence. I don't love the New York Giants quarterback situation. To me, I bought all the Brian Thomas I could last season, so I'm still all in. I feel a connection to him. The turn at 112 and 2-1 went King Henry, and to my surprise, Nico Collins, which left Malik Neighbors, which means I could get both wide receivers. But as the panel knows here, I passed on Malik Neighbors. We can touch on that in a little bit as to why I passed on Malik Neighbors and who I passed on him for after we wrap around with everybody's picks. Unless you want my first three, I'll give them to you, but I think let's recap the others. I'll come back and give you my opinion on why I did what I did, and then we can shape the fourth round, or I can hit them all right now. It's up to you.
Deal. I'm good with that to wait on. I'm looking at my draft in the first round, which I'll share in a second. But there's one change in my draft than yours in the first round. Biggest surprise of who was in or out of the first round, or pretty standard?
For me, I was surprised that Genty went as late as he did at pick 10. I was concerned that at 11 I was going to have to decide between Genty and a wide receiver that I wanted. But he went at 10, so I'm good. I'm happy with that. And as much as I think that he's probably going to be a really good football player in the NFL, I did not want to start my draft with a rookie running back that plays for the one-time Oakland Raiders. So Genty was my surprise in going late. King Henry going at the end of the first round is a little bit of a surprise, but not out of the discussion.
Oh, Matt, quick
Nico
question.
2-1.
Good.
Nico 2-1 was the biggest surprise for me to start out of the first 13 picks.
Got it. Before we go to Jeff, quick question. If this is 1976 and Genty's a rookie on the Raiders, are you taking him early?
76 would make him – I don't even know who that is, 1976.
Either way,
you got Mark Van Egan and 100-year-old Pete Banaszak scoring the touchdowns. So
add a little juice to the Raiders back in the 70s. Gotta like that.
Would have.
I love it.
That team won the Super Bowl.
Hey, man, I don't make this shit up, okay? It's just buried in my brain somehow all the time. All right, Jeff, on to you, my man. First round, who's your player? Biggest prize, either way.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to get the first overall pick. So I debated between Chase and Jefferson. I think you can't go wrong with either, but I ended up going with the Triple Crown winner, Jamar Chase. Which is the right answer in hindsight. And, it's pretty evident that he's very likely to repeat what he did last year. Same offense. T. Higgins is back. Burrow's still there, healthy this time again. Defense sucks, so they're going to pass a lot. Like, it's just a great setup for best ball format. So I went with Chase. Feel really confident about that with the three receivers starting. He's my top dog. I feel like now I can – have fun now with my later picks because I know I have a dominant receiver. But in my first round, 7 receivers went, 5 running backs. The pick that was the most surprising for me in my draft was Brian Thomas not going in the first round. That belonged to Nico Collins, who went 9th overall before Malik Neighbors and Puka Nacua. So I was really shocked by that. I wish I was in the mid round so I could have scooped up Brian Thomas because he went in the middle of the second round. So bummed I missed him there. But yeah, and then also in the second. Drake London went before him. So it's really interesting to see how far Brian Thomas fell. And then Ashton Genty was the 4th running back in the first round of my draft as well.
I like it. I'm going to pop in here. I've got our good friend and champion, Robert Goldman here, who I'm actually in the league with. Out of 240 teams, we got paired in the same league, which is fun. Spoiler alert, he went with Christian McCaffrey at 111 and got BTJ on the turn with the second pick in the second round. Where I'm sitting, that's an absolute monster start of the Razzball draft, in my opinion, for best ball. Christian McCaffrey's only scary because he might miss games. In best ball, when he's out there, he's probably going to deliver for you. So I like that a lot. Appreciate you, Robert. Thank you for tuning in with us, and best of luck the rest of your draft. It's been a lot of fun. Awesome, Jeff. Cool. And we got Bill Dino back in the mix as well. Bill, we missed you last week on the old reunion tour. Hey, let's go. We do have some children in the audience. Bill, we like to keep it clean here on the program, as you know. But great to see you back, my man. Appreciate you always tuning in here. All righty. Davey, let's go to you.
You see the comment? Bob Goldman as the spoiler for my first 2 picks.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. I started them in the opposite way. I went Brian Thomas at 111, and I went Christian McCaffrey as the home run swing at 202. So yes,
I like it, man.
We started the same way. We just did it in opposite order.
I like that big dumper energy, man. I'm all about it. Dave, I want to go to you. Before you spill the beans on your particular league, you have been the man behind the scenes along with Styles, but you've been kind of driving the bus a little bit as well this year. Just let us know something that the listeners should know, the viewers should know, the drafters should know in RazzBowl. Any updates, any things you want everybody to know while we're working out the kinks here in day 1 or 2 of the actual drafts where you got the people's attention. So give us a few words on the league itself from behind the scenes, and then go ahead and apply with your picks in your first round.
Yeah, as far as, recruiting people and dealing with NFFC, it's been pretty good. I mean, there's not the scalability and the instantaneous responses from things, but Jeff Stein over at NFFC has been great with us. He's done a whole bunch of work for us in the beginning. We've been able to get user information and people that registered for the tournament pretty regularly. So that was good. And we had a few hiccups real early on. I heard somebody on the panel wasn't able to log in for most of yesterday. And, that's regrettable. But I think we were able to work out quite a few kinks. I know Gray reached out to me to get Denny Carter logged in. And there were a couple of other guys that were having problems logging in. I know if people were using the Play NFC app yesterday, they were doing a reboot. So if people had an older version of the app, they were fine. But if the newest version of the app was giving us some problems. Today, I've heard no feedback one way or the other. So kind of a no news is good news thing. And I know I've talked to people on and off. It sounds like the drafts are going along quite nicely. Like I said, our draft just hit the 3-4 turn, and that's with a couple of timeouts. So I think we're doing pretty good overall. Like I said, nobody's come back and threatened to Harry Carey or anything. We haven't had anybody at our league offices come in and try to shoot. So I think we're doing okay.
Maybe too soon. That's coming from me. Maybe too soon.
Sure, Dave, give us your first round.
As far as the draft I'm in, I'm sorry.
Go ahead and give us your first couple picks in your first round.
Yeah, so our first round is I don't think you're going to see a lot of differences between the drafts in the first round. We started out with Jamar Chase. I had the second pick. I took Jahmyr Gibbs. The next two picks were running backs. It was a total of 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers. So it went Chase, Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Barkley, Justin Jefferson. Jeff Erickson took CeeDee Lamb, and Bob Lung took Christian McCaffrey, which is pretty early, but, if it pays off, that's great. Then Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devin Achane, Austin Jonty, Brian Thomas, and Malik Neighbors. And I think Nico Collins was a surprise pick in a number of drafts. He went 201 in our league as well.
Nice. It's funny to look at mine here and just see the similarities and the disparities. It's cool. Awesome. And biggest surprise for you, Dave, before we move to Derek?
As far as it goes, I'm a little surprised that Puka lasted till pick number 15.
So not a first rounder, yeah.
But there were. Yeah, I mean, with 6 running backs, there's only so many. I mean, with 6 wide receivers, there's only so many guys that can go in the first round. Puka going after Nico Collins is a little bit of a surprise to me. But maybe people are thinking that Devontae Adams siphons some targets away from Puka.
I would think so. Matt Stafford's been able to feed many over the years, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But I see where they're coming from. There seems to be no real competition necessarily with Nico too much yet. I don't think, at least report-wise. All right, Eric, over to you, man. First couple picks and your first round.
Yeah. Pretty much the same. I've got a couple notable happenings in the latter part of the first round, but Jamar Chase went number 1, pretty much same as everyone else. Our number 2 drafter timed out in the first round, and so he autoed Bijan Robinson, which
pretty solid auto.
Which sucked for me because I had the 3rd pick, but I was between Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, so I got Jahmyr Gibbs, which I'm fine with. So I started Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm at number 3. Jefferson went 4, Barkley, Lamb, Achane, and then Nico Collins went 8 in ours. And I've heard a couple of say that Nico Collins was in the first round. He went number 8 for us, so that was a little bit of a surprise. Amon-Ra St. Brown 9, Neighbors, Puka at 11, and then no one's mentioned yet tight end. Brock Bowers went 112 for us. So we
nice.
went. So we had 7 wide receivers, 4 running backs, and a tight end in the first round. So I thought, Nico Collins was, at 8 was early, too early for me. So that was a surprise. But then also, with Brock Bowers going at 12. So I didn't really think much of it at the time, but hearing everyone else not mentioning Brock Bowers in the first round. So that's a little bit of a surprise as well.
Interesting. And everybody else had running back, wide receiver, right? And there's been no quarterbacks, correct, in 2 or 3 rounds. Have you guys had a quarterback in 3rd or 4th round at all?
Yes.
3rd round.
We had 2 quarterbacks taken in the 3rd round.
Who's that? Allen and Jackson?
Well, yeah, Lamar went 307 and Josh Allen went 312.
Okay. And for you dynasty folks and best ballers who have 39 leagues already, this is not super flex. So if you're pulling your hair out thinking, why aren't you picking all the quarterbacks yet? This is single quarterback.
Yeah.
So
there's no super flex league where Lamar is going 307.
No, he probably doesn't make it out of the first 3. Okay, cool. So over to my league. I'll share mine really quick, and then Styles, I would love for you to break down your 4th pick for us. And then let's get the P's a little longer while we got the folks in our grasp. You can drop us with a couple names for your 4th pick. Give us your other 3. We're going to Jefferson for some in the archives analysis drop that into the chat for the people, Matt, and then we'll come back and we'll make that pick here as we wrap up in a little bit, if that's good for you. Okay, my first round, Bijan went first. It sounds like Chase went first for most or all of you so far. Bijan actually went first for us. Chase went second. No surprise there. Saquon Barkley makes the top 3. I was not that I'm surprised he's top 5 or top 3 in general, but the way drafts were going, and I just figured Jefferson and Gibbs would go. They didn't. Saquon went number 3. Jefferson goes 4. I was at 5 and ended up with Jahmyr Gibbs, which I'm very happy about. He's my new Alvin Kamara. I'm thrilled about it. Derrick Henry was the 6th player taken. Again, no shade on Derrick Henry at all. But I think this goes back to what Jefferson said earlier, which is Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. But rankings-wise, he'd be tail end of the first round, early second in pretty much all other drafts. In best ball, I'll get a few 40-point games right out of Derrick Henry. So he goes 6th. CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Puka go with the next 3. Devon Achane at 10. Christian McCaffrey back in the first round at 11. And then Malik Neighbors goes at 12. Biggest surprise for me, I guess, would be Saquon or Henry. I'm big on Christian McCaffrey, so him going in the first round is not surprising to me. But hearing you guys talk about Nico Collins and Brian Thomas Jr. not going in the first round was a bit surprising. So my first round was pretty standard. I don't think anybody should not have been a first rounder, but those guys not in the first round seemed to be a little surprising. And the Brock Bowers update in my league is middle second round. He just got picked. So having him in the middle first round, it's the new Kelsey effect, if you will. So, Gronk, I guess, originally. So we'll see what happens there. Okie dokie. Matt, I'm going to go to you. Give us the 3 guys you got so far, and let us know who you're looking at in general, your team philosophy, all these kind of things. This is a full PPR, single quarterback, 3 wide receiver, 2 running back league. Who's a couple of names you want to drop for us, and then just drop that comment into the chat so we can all keep reviewing it, and we'll come back in a bit. And viewers, we would love for you to vote on that, give your 2 cents, and then we'll come back for a conversation in a bit. Floor is yours, man.
All right. As you mentioned just now, and Dave mentioned a minute ago, this is a 3 wide receiver start league, and I believe 2 flex. Is that right? Somebody remind me. 1 flex,
Yep.
2 flex.
Yep, 2 flex.
Just 1.
Yep.
2 flex.
No, 2.
Okay, so
it's a 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receiver, a tight end, and 2 flex.
2 flex. Okay, so with that, I have started all of my RazzBall drafts by loading up as much as I could with wide receivers. Last year, I went away from it a little bit, and it did not bode well. And the guys that I did draft, some of them got injured, and I didn't have the depth that I needed. So this year, I started with Brian Thomas Jr. at 111. I came back at. Can you still hear me, Dave? Everything looks like it reset. You guys still hear me?
Yep.
I can still hear you. Your work
So
coming
I came back
fine.
at 2-2, and as I discussed with the guys, yep, okay, perfect. At 2-2, I had considered Malik Neighbors to have about 7,000 targets with my first 2 picks. And I saw Christian McCaffrey just sitting on the bench waving. And then the waving got more and more intense, and then it got a little bit sad, and then he held up a picture of an autographed Christian McCaffrey Carolina Panthers jersey. And then he held up a couple of signs that said, I was the number 1 overall fantasy player for 2 years. I'm staring at the screen, and I'm staring at him on the bench, and it was sad. I mean, frankly. Then I called Derek, and I said, Derek, you remember that one time when we had the opportunity to pick number 2, and we ended up with we talked the other guy into the pick, and we ended up with Christian McCaffrey, and he got hurt. And Derek says, who is this? And hung up. So there I was with McCaffrey right in front of me, and I just couldn't pass. I couldn't pass on the targets. I couldn't pass on who that player is, and he can be a league winner if he stays healthy. Also, what I had heard on my morning walk, because I'm old and I don't jog or run, the San Francisco 49ers, shout out to Sky Guasco, have on paper the easiest schedule in the NFL.
Number one easiest.
So,
like the easiest. Yeah.
Like the easiest. And it's really not close. And they're in a division where they're going to have to score a couple points to win. The wide receivers are a little bit of a question mark right now. There's no Debo. Kittle is healthy, but there's some issue at wide receiver. So all of that fed into me taking Christian McCaffrey. So now I've got Brian Thomas Jr., who I love, McCaffrey, who I want to love. And then the draft reps you have the long wait, and it goes all the way through. And my Q's not taking a huge hit. Lamar Jackson goes at 2-11, and I thought, okay, that helps me because it's a position player is not gone, and it's a one quarterback league. It wraps all the way back. Josh Allen goes. I said, that's another wasted pick. I'm good. Comes all the way to me at 3-11. We had already decided as a group that if I'm going to swing for the fences, I might as well swing for my heels. Big dumper style. And I'm still a little bit shocked that the player that I took at 3-11 was still on the board. And I don't understand, other than he had a really lackluster season last year, but I think most of that had to do with his quarterback being injured. So at 3-11, I took Tyreek Hill. And I figure at this point, I'm right. All of my chips are on 13 black in Vegas. I'm just going to play roulette until 13 black hits. With that being said, I am either going to win this entire tournament after 3 picks, or I am going to be eliminated going into week 10. So we'll see what happens. And so that leads me to some names. I'll type the names into the comment. Then we can actually, you know what? I'm going to tell you what my theory was. My theory used to be all wide receiver early. Now I have a hero running back if he stays healthy. I've considered after the turn, Tyreek Hill I went, and then Jalen Hurts and James Cook went. I don't care about any of that. That makes my next pick more difficult because I expected other names to go. My 2 names that I'm looking at right now play for the same offense, AFC North. I can either take the tried and true, no longer a wide receiver diva because he got paid, T. Higgins. So then I would have 3 starting wide receivers with Christian McCaffrey, or I can swing for the fences and let Joe Burrow throw to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase all season. So I will put those names in. I'm open to other names, but I'm probably not really open to those other names. That's where I'm at. T. Higgins, typing it in, or Joe Cool at the 4-2 for me.
And give us the other 3 in like parentheses or on our next quote so we can just kind of remember.
The 3 I've already drafted.
Yeah, when you said NFC North, I immediately assumed you were going Shador and Nick Chubb. That threw me off, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, they were not the ones. Not yet. I have a 5th and a 6th round pick coming up. All right, so now you want to turn it over to Jeff. Jeff's going to give you his deep analysis of past winners and lineups.
Yeah, so good food for thought there on your next pick. Now, I did look at the past 4 seasons of RazzBowl and just kind of looked at the top 10 winners and the first place team to really kind of see like what are some of the common trends. I'll start with last year. What's really interesting is a lot of teams, to my answer your question, Styles, a lot of the teams that finished pretty high weighted on quarterback. The highest quarterback that I saw was taken in the 4th round was Lamar Jackson. Other than that, everybody was averaging the 7th to 8th round for their first quarterback. So food for thought there. A lot of players stacked up on running backs and receivers as well. And a lot of teams also invested in rookies. They found some value later in the draft. Now it's easier looking back saying, wow, this guy called all these players, but there's a lot of rookies This year's a little bit different. There's not as many receivers. A lot of the teams last year hit big on a lot of receivers that are now going in the first round. Neighbors, BTJ, Xavier Worthy. A lot of these teams were real late picks. So Bucky Irving, another running back, Jaden Daniels, so Bo Nick. So it's a lot of these players are, turn out to produce a lot more than what their draft selection was. And that kind of was true even going back from 23 and 22 and 21. Just quarterbacks were just taken really late. The only one that took a quarterback high was the 4th round with Mahomes in 22. But other than that, it was 6th in the 10th round, 5th, and then the 7th and the 8th. So I would say wait on quarterback. That's what I'm going to try this year and see if I can strike gold that way. And then the one thing that I caught that was really interesting is that, at least for last year, that 4 of the 5 teams that finished in the top 5 finished with having a top 8 tight end, with 3 of them having the 2nd or 3rd best tight end. So I think if you get a really good tight end early, it's going to give your team an advantage in this PPR format for best ball, because your top 5, 6 tight ends, there's a huge drop off. So if you can get one of those tight ends early, wait on a quarterback, that might be the best route for success in RazzBowl for best ball formats.
Awesome. I like that. I like 2 things that you said. The quarterback average was cool to look at. We've heard wait on quarterback forever in single quarterback, but to actually hear the round in which they really start to pop is good. So if you want to be ahead of the curve, 5th or 6th round, you already got a couple running backs, wide receivers, maybe a top tight end. Go get your top quarterback if that's what you want, because they're going to start rolling. If not, then just know that they're probably going to go, and you can just keep punting them and pick up value elsewhere. So I like that nugget. And the tight end is great, because when the tight ends turn out, it really can be a massive sway for your league. So, they're very risky, even the top dogs, as we know. But when you have one of those guys pop off, that's really, really informative. I like that. Any other feedback from anybody else there on Jeff's analysis? Was there anything else, Jeff, that you wanted to add from those 4 years, or was that just last year's info?
Yeah, that was over the past 4 seasons, looking at the top 10, and then I really focused on last year alone, just because the leagues every year, I just feel like the NFL game changes offensively a little bit. There's more receivers now that get love. There's a lot more quarterbacks than there ever used to be that are fantasy relevant. And then now in a best ball, even the 15th ranked quarterback could have big, boom weeks. And then it's really interesting in a best ball format. Sometimes you got to get out of the mindset of a traditional like redraft, like, oh, this guy's going to be the best player on an average basis on a weekly one, but you're trying to get guys that are going to boom week in, week out. That's going to catapult your team. So you got to be strategic, I think, with the quarterback play and try to find some of those late gems.
Nice. Any feedback from the rest of you guys?
I will say we did have Brock Bowers and Trey McBride go back to back in our league at 2-0 at hang on. Let's see. So 208 and 209, Bowers and then McBride.
Yeah, I already mentioned Bowers went at 112, but McBride went in the latter part of the 2nd round in mine.
Yeah. So the guy that picked Bowers has Justin Jefferson, and the guy that picked McBride has Saquon Barkley. So that's a pretty good sounding. Both of those are good sounding starts.
I toggled, which I like to do when I'm drafting, is just kind of get nerd stats, and I just toggled all receiving options to get to the receptions, right? Receptions from last year and the projected receptions. And as you would imagine, it's all top wide receivers, about 5-6 running backs. And then, Trey McBride and Bowers are so far ahead just in receptions, not yards, touchdowns, just receptions, the tight ends. And in a full PPR league, that moves the needle tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what held both of those guys down last year. I mean, they had tons of receptions, tons of yards. Neither one of them had a ton of touchdowns. I think Bowers had 5 and McBride had 2 receiving and a rushing touchdown.
Yep. Off a fumble recovery, yeah.
Yeah, which of course, we're going to get into all that stuff as we actually start talking football here in the next couple episodes. But I have to imagine those, regress well and turn positive for both those guys. I would imagine, especially McBride. So we'll see what happens. But as we know, with those top tier tight ends, when they hit, they can really sway your team.
Yeah, McBride had really tough luck in the red zone. I think he was 3rd or 4th in red zone targets among tight ends. He had like 21 red zone targets. He only scored 2 touchdowns receiving. So yeah, you got to think if that keeps up, he's gonna get his.
And I think I will. They made a concerted effort last year to try to do that. I think it'll pop. And actually, I'm on deck in our league in the middle second round. And right now, 2 players in my queue are Trey McBride and Drake London. So if Trey McBride's available, if it's those 2 guys available, we'll have a conversation offline. If one of those guys goes, it's the pick. But if it's Trey McBride, I think for me, because I'm in the middle of the draft. I'm in the 5th pick, right? And then the 8th pick in the next round. So there's something psychological with me when I'm in the middle of like, I got to just kind of get my dude because they're not – I like doubling up on the turn, right? Making 2 picks at a time so you can really kind of formulate a position or an identity. When I'm going – it feels like 1 every 50 picks. It's kind of like, I'll just get the stuff while I can. So probably be Bride here. And I don't know if that's a reach or value at this point, based on how you guys are talking.
I have a general question, strategy-wise. Jeff, this is information you probably didn't glean from your research. But do you feel like you should load up on players that have a bye after the cut line at week 10? Or do you load up on players that have their buys before the cut line? And the key being that when you go weeks 1 through 10 where it's best ball, all of those points count for your playoffs. Your average helps you when you hit weeks 11 through the final. So I'm wondering if you guys have looked at any type of bye weeks and have you considered loading up on the front end or the back end?
I did not look at that, but that's something I will look into now, though. I think the bye week thing is so interesting. It just depends on how your team is constructed early on. Maybe you want to try to balance it out, but I'd have to look at the bye weeks for all teams because there's certain offenses that I want to target in best ball. So I'd want to look at those teams' bye weeks and then formulate a decision based on that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Last night I did look at that. So Jahmyr Gibbs is my only pick so far. Bye week 8. And if I just scroll down again, I can toggle here with the 8th round bye week. So guess who has an 8th round bye week or an 8th week?
Trey McBride.
Trey McBride certainly does, which is not a big deal for redraft. Definitely don't care in dynasty. Horrendous for best ball because you're just nuking 2 positions for 1 week. And again, all that matters, right? Like he gets a 0, but an extra 0 in best ball because he's given a bench opportunity. Kyron Williams, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker, Marvin Harrison, James Conner, Devontae Adams, Jameson Williams. It's a lot of awesome fantasy opportunity in week 8 that I'm maybe forfeiting intentionally because of the bye week that I think is really important in best ball more than redraft.
That brings up a good discussion point though with someone like McBride who has a bye week in 8 and in a league where tight ends are a little bit more valuable. So high volume tight ends anyway. Do you draft a second tight end a little earlier on a different bye week so you take advantage of that week 8 bye week from hell and get another tight end to fill in there to get those extra points. And then you can always use that. If that tight end turns out to be another high volume tight end, you can use them in the flex. So there's a strategy there.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. One guy we brought up, I'm not going to mention Kyle Pitts. I'll let Jeff do that. But one guy we brought up on a recent episode was Zach Ertz, who doesn't have a bye week until 12, which is after the cut line. But then I'm riding Trey McBride at that point anyway. So to Matt's point, right, that's a great kind of like I don't know, it's behind the curtain of like the extra zen that goes on in these drafts in best ball. It's just different. And RazzBowl specifically with better ball, which I think we should get deeper in that philosophy of what that actually means for people listening in. But that matters more when you're setting rosters in the second half, in our limited fab budget, which we haven't really covered on the air either. Like there's a lot of things about this league that's really unique, and I love it because it makes it so much more intentional for how to draft. And I really appreciate that about how particular things are. Okie dokie. I've got 2 hours and 22 minutes at longest to wait out this Trey McBride situation. Do you guys think it would be catastrophic, a.k.a. El Stupido, for me to start my draft with two players the week 8 bye week, knowing who they are? A top 5 back across the board, and Trey McBride? Is that like a bro, what are you doing? Or like, hey man, don't worry about it. You got 8 weeks to get your shit together.
I think those two players are in a league of their own where you're picking, and I think that unless you love Drake London, which means you trust a Washington Husky at quarterback,
and a Trojan at wide receiver.
Yep, yeah. The entire used to be Pac-10. So ask Derek this, right? Derek's about in the same position as you are, draft wise, right? He was 1-3. I believe you're 1-4.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my answer to your question, Sky. You're not crazy, because that's exactly what I did. And the way I justified it is I've got 2 tier 1 players at their position. Okay. And I will pay attention to that week 8 bye later in the draft to make sure that I can fill that respectfully. But the rest of the time, I've got 2 of the top players in their position, top tier in my first 2 picks. I can't pass that up. I didn't have a chance for London. He went at 2-6 in mine, but he was also the 9th wide receiver off the board. So I can get someone, in the 3rd or even the 4th round, someone like Mike Evans or, someone of that ilk, and they'll do a respectable job that, as London will in the 3rd or 4th round, for instance. And I still have, arguably the top 2 tight end on my team with arguably the top 1 or 2 running backs. So no, I don't think it's crazy at all.
And in theory, right, you mentioned it, Trey McBride's, knock on wood that he doesn't get injured, he plays for you every week except 2, or except 1, right, the bye week. And you can go cherry pick throughout the draft when you want, right? Is Colston Loveland available when you go draft? Is Tyler Warren? Is Evan Ingram? When you go draft, where you're like, okay, I'm kind of loaded at wide receiver. I don't like the running backs here, but here's my opportunity to take a high volume Evan Ingram at the joker position for Denver, who, by the way, not only am I blocking the next 3 guys from taking Evan Ingram, but I've got Evan Ingram covering the week 8 bye. And by the way, if Evan Ingram goes back to being Evan Ingram, you've also covered your flex. The year I finished, the best finish I had in RazzBowl, I finished 9th overall. I had a stack of Purdy, Ayuk, and Kittle when they all had their great years. My running back stayed healthy, and every wide receiver I selected hit. But I kept playing a second tight end Evan Ingram at flex because he was better in this PPR format than other players that I had. I had 2 running backs. They survived the season. I had a fill-in during bye week. They got a couple of points, but I truly believe you have to load up on wide receivers. You need an elite tight end, and in this format, that means top 8. I think Jeff mentioned you want a top 8 tight end. So when it gets to 5, 6 have been drafted, start looking at your tight end. And in between, you just load up on wide receivers in offenses that are going to throw the football. Bengals over the Ravens, right, for wide receivers. You don't want the Bills wide receivers early. You want high volume. You want CeeDee Lamb. You want George Pickens. You want Dak Prescott. Those are the stacks that will win you in RazzBowl.
Yeah, and just to add one extra point, the way I look at it, both with Gibbs and McBride, but we'll just talk McBride for easy math. If I can plug a tight in there for week 8, it gets me 50% of what McBride averages per week. 50%. So if McBride, every other week that he's in there, he gets even 10% more than the league average. After 5 weeks, I'm playing with house money. So even if it's 1 week and I only get half from the tight end that I'm expecting, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna be making money on it. By the time we get to the playoff weeks. So I'm not all that concerned about it, to be honest. But it will figure into my draft strategy later on for sure.
I like that. And as Matt said last week, don't condone gambling, playing with house money. But also, as Matt said, we don't condone not condoning playing with house money. You know what I'm saying? So gamble responsibly. Vegas is not a sponsor, just for the record. Dave, you have been kicking tight ends around for us in the off season. Super selfish, and maybe I should just ask you off the air, but I'm not going to because this is fun. Throw me 2 names that are like, what the hell draft picks after the 10th round that I consider, or anybody else who's taking Laporta, Kittle, McBride, Bowers, any of these top dogs early and having to battle with that bye week.
I think if you're drafting right now, I think one of the biggest bargains out there at tight end is Jake Ferguson. As long as Prescott stays healthy, I think Jake Ferguson's gonna bounce back in a big way this year. He just signed a big contract too, so obviously the Cowboys believe in him. I think he's going in the mid-teens at tight ends, maybe the early teens, but still, I think he's potentially a top 10 guy that you can get late in drafts.
I like that. That's a week 10 bye with the week 8 bye. Love it. Tucker Kraft coming back around as well. It's a week 5 bye. That would work also. I love it, gentlemen. Jeff, let's circle back to you really quick. Any other deep dive analysis or anything else with the last handfuls of RazzBowls and any other nuggets for our drafters, everybody else? Again, I'm literally 1.5 rounds into this. Styles and company are hitting round 4. We're going to be all over the map here for the next couple of weeks, drafting slowly through this for 20 rounds, folks. So we'll be covering this off and on for the rest of the summer. But, Jeff, any other nuggets that we can keep in our back pocket while we're drafting?
Yeah. So a few players that I didn't go this far back, but at least for last season, names that I saw on repeat for these top 10 teams: George Kittle, BTJ, Neighbors, Mike Evans, Chase Brown. So look for the rookies. I think those are where your best value is because you'll get them in positions where they're going to outperform. And then, a player like Mike Evans who's going to boom. You try to find those receivers. A guy that kind of fits this bill who's also a rookie that might blow up, Trey Harris. I know I look at him in Dynasty a little bit, though, but he's a guy that could be, boom for Justin Herbert over in LA.
I love it. Somebody needs to be Mike Williams because Mike Williams couldn't be Mike Williams. Super sad. All right, I dig it. All right, anybody else in the chat that wants to pop off real quick with any questions, draft questions, RazzBowl questions, you want to share your roster, whatever, let's do that in the next about 5 minutes. Once again, gentlemen, you blink, you have a couple conversations, it's been an hour. Unbelievably how we go through time here on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Styles, I'll turn back to you here quick. You mentioned we talked to Bob, and again, Bob, we love you, buddy. We miss you. You had mentioned the Sunday Live Start Sit Show. We're a month away, but Matt, could you let them know how much fun we actually have and what we do Sunday mornings?
It depends. There's been episodes where Bob and I have verbally fist fought over Justin Fields. There has been a Woodford Reserve shot taking event that happened at least I believe 2 years ago. That happened, and that was at 8 a.m. I believe Central Time. We always, what I like to say, and we had a discussion about pears. Bob, the former host, had never eaten a pear in his life, and he was in his mid to late 30s. He's never had a pear. I don't know. He's just creatine. All Bob eats is creatine and chicken breast. And rice. He's just ripped, I guess. We talked a lot about gingers and how they're either the best thing in the world or the worst, right? We don't know if they're the devil. We have to wait for Bob to confirm. He might be on a little bit of a darkness retreat with other gingers. I don't know. I don't ask those questions. We say come for the analysis and stay for the fun. You can read anything on the internet about any topic to include all of our fun football stuff. It really comes down to where are you enjoying your time being spent. I think you have a good time with us, and we are certainly not chalk as it comes to football talk on Sunday morning. We are not chalk. And we still have a vote to make before we sign off, because I have a pick to make before I go to bed.
Yes, we do. I want to make sure that we get that reviewed. Before you do that, we do all the behind the scenes things so we can pay the bills properly, and we'll wrap up with that. I do want to also just verbally welcome and share. We do have an additional writer, and we might have another one come season time. Not on the program yet on the air, but you will see his words live right now on football.razzball.com. His name is Kev, and many of you probably have read his articles on the baseball side. He's been a part of the baseball team here at RazzBall for a while. He decided to jump ship and come join us as well. So much like our boy Favret, he is double dipping, and we appreciate that. We're all baseball heads too. Now that Bob's gone, we can appreciate baseball properly here on the football side. So, Kev, welcome in, bro. We appreciate you. Roto Surgeon. Look at Bob Goldman just shouting out everybody but himself. That's a good clubhouse guy. That's what we need in the organization. Absolutely phenomenal team membership there. Shout out Bob Goldman. Roto Surgeon. You can go check him out. Football.razzball.com. First article dropped today. It was the top players to fade out of the top 100. We talk all the time about the players we love. That's a lot of fun. When you're drafting, it's arguably more important to know the players to fade so you're not drafting grenades onto your team. So go check out his article and everybody else at football.razzball.com. And please make sure you leave him a comment, and everybody also welcoming him to the squad in the football side. So again, shout out to Kev and the rest of our team. Again, you can find everything football related at football.razzball.com. Fantasy is rolling. The tools are getting updated. Our rankings are updated. RazzBall is underway. We have 2 listener leagues that we have not even mentioned this week because we've been talking RazzBall, which is the big listener league. But we have a guillotine league with some spots left as well. And we also have a listener league if you're interested. So feel free to drop in the comments if you'd like to be a part of that. If not, we'll bring it up on the next couple of weeks as well. Those draft dates are going to be in August, so we do have some time there. Everything on X is at RazzballNFL. And, of course, you can subscribe right here to the YouTube channel at the Razzball Fantasy Football Show and download the podcast also while you're on the move. Maddie, give us your team again, and we will go around the horn, and let's get your picks, and let's get that pick in.
I started wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. at 111. I figured this was the safest way to move forward. I would take Malik Neighbors at 202, but I passed on Neighbors. I passed on Neighbors for Christian McCaffrey at 202. Neighbors went just after that. So now I have Brian Thomas Jr., Christian McCaffrey, wrapped all the way back down to 311. Tyreek Hill was on the board, so I took Tyreek Hill. The turn went Jalen Hurts and James Cook, which did not affect me. So at this point, I am now opening it up for a team vote. I will after you vote, I will tell you what my pick is and what kind of solidified my pick for tonight. After being on the horn for an hour with you guys, my decision was made during our rant. So you guys, Sky, you take the vote count and let's see what it comes up as.
Deal. Let's go, Jeff. You're up first, buddy.
I'm going to go T. Higgins. Do you want any rationale behind that or just the answer?
Just the answer. Davey?
Yeah, I'm a long time wait on the quarterback guy in one quarterback leagues. Burrow's certainly attractive, and he could certainly put up huge numbers. I just think it's a little bit too early for him in the fourth round. If these are the two guys, I'm choosing T. Higgins.
So that's one for Higgins and then one for Higgins. All right. What about Derek?
Yeah, quick quiz. Which NFL quarterback, which is the only NFL quarterback last year that could support 2 top 10 targeted wide receivers? That would be Joe Burrow. So, and both of his top receivers are happy now. I'm going Joe Burrow.
That's one. That's one for Burrow. All right, Sky. If you go Burrow, I have to break the tie.
I love that. I'm going to leave it easy on you. I'm going to go with T. Higgy. First of all, I've been hashtag T. Higgy for like 5 years. I'm going to stick with it. If you happen to have Jamar Chase somehow and you wanted to go this early with Burrow with the stack, I'm all in. I'm going to go with Jeff's analysis. I love me some numbers. I love me some history. I don't think Burrow's going to last for you, unfortunately, but there's a lot of other names that could have some big names. And because it's best ball, Matt, there's guys like, Bryce Young, who's going to throw out like 4 top 5 finishes this year because that's how it goes. So Burrow's better than him, obviously, but I'm going to go with T. Higgins for consistency at wide receiver. And your wide receiver situation is massive there. So I'd rather have that on the quarterback. I'll stick with T. Higgy also.
All right. So the two things that one was what Jeff brought up about history, 7th round quarterback drafts, which is where I had Brock Purdy and Matthew Stafford back to back. I was drafting out of the I believe it was in the middle of the draft board that year, not at the polls. And I went back to back Purdy and Stafford, and they just chucked the ball all over the place. High percentage, lot of completions, lots of yak for the receivers. The second thing, and this is where Derek's big brain comes in. When I was looking at Tyreek or T. Higgins, I was talking myself in and out of who was going to be drafted, who was going to be picked, and Derek said, you're looking at T. Higgins, you're looking at Tyreek Hill. One of those players will absolutely not be available after you pick at 311. Which player is that? I said, it's Tyreek. You've made your decision. Drafted Tyreek. The draft didn't go the way I thought with Hurts and Cook going next. That leaves me with the 2 receivers that I wanted, that I was arguing with myself back and forth. I'm going with T. Higgins to pair with Brian Thomas Jr. and Tyreek Hill. And I will say this, to Derek's comment, one of those players that I had in line, Higgins or Burrow, only one of them is guaranteed to not make it back to me. I believe that's T. Higgins. In a 1 quarterback league, there is an outside chance that in the 20 picks after I take T. Higgins, that Joe Burrow could make it back to me. I don't think he will, but I think that there's an opportunity, whereas T. Higgins would go in the next 2 to 3 picks if I don't draft him.
So Matt, how many quarterbacks are off the board in your league right now?
The top 4. The 4 running quarterbacks are off the board.
Okay. I was going to say, So good-o.
The likelihood of Burrow being there is slim to none, but there is a less than 1% chance T. Higgins makes it through 20 picks.
Well, take it from a champion. He's going Higgins as well. I'd listen to the man. T. Higgy it is. I like it, Matt. That was fun. We're going to have more picks on air. If I can get a pick in here from my boy Sanchez, I would gladly make a pick with the boys right now too, but I got to wait. There it is. Proof is in the pudding. I like it. Lock it in. My man. All right, Deke, roll us out. For Matt, for Jeff, for Dave, for Derek, for Ben down under, and our new boy Kev, and Bob LaMarco. What the hell? We appreciate y'all here at the RazzBall Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. We'll catch you next week on a Tuesday. Y'all be safe. Have fun with your RazzBall drafts, and enjoy some football coming up soon. Have a good night, everybody.